Hello and welcome back to the Premier League years here on FM22. We're now entering into the 2032-33 season, but as we have been doing, we're going to take a look how the Premier League finished in the previous season. If you want to see more of a deep dive into the season just gone, just head back one video for the 2031-32 season. Just a very, very quick rundown. We saw Chelsea finally knock off Manchester City for the first time in 5 seasons to regain their crown. Man City still finishing in behind, way clear of Liverpool and Newcastle. Sheffield United won the Europa Conference League, which is why they will be playing Europa League football next season. And more surprisingly, the relegation zone, we saw Leeds and Everton relegated for the first time in the save. Everton for the first time in the Premier League era that they will not be in the top flight. Bournemouth also had an immediate return back down to the Championship. I have been doing a little bit of digging though, because something I wanted to check is that some clubs can get taken over in FM. Obviously, if you play Football Manager, you're pretty familiar with that idea. So I was going through some of the landmark screens on Premier League sides, and one that caught my eye was this. If we go to Sheffield United, we find that at the beginning of last season, they had a tycoon takeover attempt by Khalifa Al Ramati. Now, this failed. So Sheffield United still have their old chairperson, who is still here, but seemingly is willing to sell. However, Al Ramati wasn't done because he actually took over Leeds just 2 months later. So Leeds have a tycoon owner. However, they're playing Championship football next season. But we could be seeing some big transfers happening with Leeds. I would expect to see them back very, very quickly, and they could be a force when they do return. That is our first and so far only tycoon takeover. It was just a little note that I thought it just adds a bit of a storyline there, that it could have been Sheffield United, but he ends up going to Leeds in the end, a couple months after being rejected from Sheffield United. But if we now move forward to the 2032-33 season, where we actually don't have Leeds again, I imagine they'll be back pretty quickly. But we are going to take a quick look at the 3 sides who have come up to the Premier League for this season. And again, it's a lot of Bs. Brentford are literally the Bs, so that feels like a very good place to start. Brentford are straight back into the top flight after 1 season away. They came second in the Championship under Darren Ferguson. So we welcome Sir Alex's son as a Premier League manager at the age of 60, which is very interesting. He only came in January to replace, I did have a look and I've forgotten, to replace Slavisa Jokanovic, who actually went to be Brighton manager, who we're going to look at next. But Darren Ferguson was brought in from Hamilton in Scotland, succeeds in getting Brentford promoted, so he will get a shot at Premier League management if we roll back through. As mentioned, the next club is indeed Brighton. They actually won the Championship title for the 2nd time in this simulation. And as mentioned, it's under Slavisa Jokanovic because Gini Wijnaldum took over at Fulham during last season, leaving Brighton to do so, which then led to Jokanovic heading to Brighton from Brentford, which then led to Darren Ferguson heading to Brentford. So there was a bit of a carousel through all of that. But the other side that have come up to the Premier League through the playoffs, it's a 2nd Premier League season in the save for Derby County. They were here 4 seasons ago in 2028-29, finished bottom of the league. I kind of expect the same thing to happen this year, but they do come through the playoffs after a 4th place finish in their third season back in the second tier. We take a look how they actually got on in the playoffs. It was a 4-1 aggregate win over Millwall, and then a 2-1 win in the playoff final over Blackburn Rovers. Interesting to see Millwall getting back into that playoff battle again. I think that's the second time that's happened. But Blackburn come close to another Premier League return. However, it doesn't quite come off for them this time. And I believe if Blackburn had come up, it would have been the three sides that went down the previous season who would have all returned straight away, which wouldn't have been ideal. So well done, Derby, for getting yourselves in there. Next thing we're going to do is get a look at the season preview. And for the first time in quite a few seasons, Chelsea are actually the favourites, coming in as defending champions. Manchester City just in behind. But look at that gap back to Manchester United, who are currently predicted third. We see Liverpool, Newcastle and Arsenal in here. These four have been battling for third and fourth for a good couple of years now. So they seem to have made their own little group. And then you've got Spurs in behind in seventh, and Leicester and Sheffield United. Again, this is another little group that has been battling for that seventh position quite often recently. And look at the size of that gap. From Sheffield United back to Aston Villa and Wolves at 150 to 1 each. And then it becomes a full-on relegation battle from there down. Derby at 1,000 to 1 is massive odds, and I really don't expect Derby to do very well this season. They did better than I thought they would in their first Premier League season, even though they still finished bottom. Points-wise, they did a lot better. But I don't see this season going well. Fulham are actually predicted to go down. Reading in there as well. Brighton is new promoted side. You can see how close it is, though. And the past couple of seasons have had some very, very close relegation battles. So I'm expecting it to be along similar lines this year. If we take a look at the Media Dream 11 as well, we find a new goalkeeper planted into it. And it's Osvaldo Fernando, who is heading into his second season as Newcastle's goalkeeper. Had a very good first year. He now picks up that spot. Arsenal's Strahinja Bjekovic is the right back now. We've seen him for quite a while at Arsenal. Is probably one of the world's best fullbacks, to be honest. And then if we look to left back, we actually find somebody who has been at Man United for a while, but was never really mentioned. He's actually transfer listed because they don't have a role for him. Chelsea and Newcastle want him. This is very strange. But Balázs Pusztai is in the predicted team of the year, but is transfer listed because Man United don't play him. Okay. If we look to the rest of the back line, we find Alejandro Rodriguez, who is actually a star player for Manchester United. Currently has a concussion, but he should be all right. A Mexican centre-back who looks completely otherworldly, to be honest. He looks ridiculous. And his partner in this is Franco Manica, a player that I think I have mentioned previously. The name certainly rings a bell. Is only 5'11", which is not the tallest for a centre-back, but he looks ridiculously good as well, so I won't knock that too hard. We move on to the midfield. We actually do find three real players in Kylian Mbappe, Eduardo Camavinga, both for Chelsea, and Yeremy Pino on the right for Manchester City. The only new gen player in there is Pedro Pretel, the Peruvian midfielder who's been at Liverpool for a good 3 years now and has been a very, very good player. Is still only 26 years of age as well. And then we have a nice mix up front. We have Erling Haaland still here off the back of his most recent Golden Boot. But Irondino, or Iandino, I really still have no idea how to pronounce his name, but he is now in the predicted team of the season. 15 goals in his first Premier League season. We'll see if he can step that up even more for this coming season. And the final thing to do at the June stop-off is to check on any very early transfers in this summer window. And there have been 3 pretty big ones. And we start with another player going from Wolfsburg to Chelsea for a very, very big fee. They had, if I can find him, Hirokazu Matsumoto, who made the move back in 2028 from Wolfsburg to Chelsea. That was £88 million. Similarly, they have moved him up to midfield as well, which I think is most likely going to help him. But now it's Richard Diallo, a German left winger, 25 years of age, is described as an elite winger. You can certainly see why. He's pleased to have joined Chelsea. He looks like a very, very good player. And it was smart business from Wolfsburg. £48.5 million from Bayern Munich 3 years ago. Plays an okay season and then 2 pretty good seasons. And they make a big profit on him. £77 million, making that same move to Chelsea. We look just one further down. And Brighton, newly promoted to the Premier League, remember, making big money on a sale to Manchester City of defensive midfielder Camilo Romero from Colombia. Came into Brighton from Liverpool, actually, for £15 million. I mean, Liverpool got him on a free, so you can't really knock them. Has played a season with Coventry, which is quite nice. But Brighton spent £15 million on him, get 3 reasonably decent seasons out of him, and then, I mean, profit-wise, that's £42 million profit, and it could rise even further with a potential fee of £68 million. Brighton getting some big money again. And Man City making moves for Camilo Romero. The other transfer that stands out is Man City pretty much recuperating the near full amount in selling Liam Delap to Tottenham. Delap is now 29 years of age, has been sort of a reserve bench player for Man City. But when he has come on, like this season here, you can see only 9 starts, but 19 appearances off the bench. He got 15 Premier League goals that season. He did the same thing in 26-27 as well, although actually he started pretty much all that season and got 15 goals. So you can see where the talent is, and that Liam Delap can pop up with goals if you give him the chance. Spurs are going to give him that chance now. It's later in his career than maybe expected, but I'm very intrigued to see how Liam Delap gets on for Tottenham. That could be a very, very good move in the near future. We go down a little bit further. We actually find Chelsea selling Wesley Fofana, who is now 31, turning 32. Newcastle taking a bit of the Sheffield United approach here, where you sign players who are just entering their 30s and get the good 2 or 3 top talent years out of them before moving on. However, Newcastle obviously have a lot more money to do that, and they can bring in even better players. And in this case, it's Wesley Fofana. That's a pretty good signing, I would say. We go down a little further. Speaking of Sheffield United, we find them bringing in an Everton player. Obviously, Everton relegated at the end of last season. And they actually spend not much more than Everton paid to bring in Enoch Aguiyi. Aggie. I've completely butchered his name. But a winger/striker, I'd say mostly winger, described as a winger, described as elite as well. Though he has just suffered a relegation, so don't know how elite you can describe that. But Enoch Aguiyi coming in. We see West Ham making a big move for a Leicester player in Moritz Kjærgaard. Listed as an attacking midfielder, I think that probably is his primary position. West Ham trying to get better now, and Leicester getting a decent amount of money for a player there. And Leicester used that money to bring in a man who we hadn't mentioned for a season or two, Ed Hewison. The only reason we found out about him is because he scored a winning goal in the cup final for Manchester City a few years ago. And then Fulham made a big move for him. Then Man United made a big move for him. And now Leicester make the biggest move of the lot. So it's Leicester using the money they got for selling Kjærgaard to bring in Ed Hewison. Is he finally going to get a chance? Squad player listing, so maybe not. But I would love to see him get a go at it. And we see this is an interesting one. Dean Green for Everton tended to be listed quite highly in defensive statistics. And now with Everton's relegation, Newcastle pick him up for £33 million. Only considered a squad player. I would like to have seen more for him because he has been reasonably decent for Everton. Sadly, it's not going to be any more than that. As we scroll down, we find Liverpool's biggest move early in the window is to turn to Celtic to bring in Argentinian centre-back Matías Sanchez, who is very good at what he does, but is missing in a lot of technical areas. So you'd say he's a player who's good at getting the ball out and keeping it out of his goal, which is the main thing you want from a centre-back. But I'm not sure he's elite standard that you would expect from Liverpool. And he's listed as a regular starter. But it's a fairly cheap move, to be fair, just under £20 million. Yeah, that's not the kind of transfer I would expect from Liverpool. Obviously, there's still a lot of the window to go. Go down a little further, we find Rico Lewis leaving Spurs, heading to Leeds. As mentioned, Leeds with that tycoon takeover could see them making some big moves in the near future. We are scrolling down. We're not finding too much else here. We do find Aston Villa making a signing from FC Groningen in Abdoulaye Kamara. So he comes in after a decent stint in Holland, actually, after being picked up on a free. So well played Groningen there. You got a player on a free, he played pretty well for you as a defensive mid, and then you sell him for over £11 million. So not a bad little play from them. And then Southampton's biggest move early in the window is Evgeny Shipelovic from Belarus, a 6'4" centre-back. And honestly, I know his defensive stats are not as good as the centre-back that had joined Liverpool. And to be fair, neither are his physicals really, but I think his mentals are better. He's better on the ball if you want a ball-playing player as well. And he's much taller with a higher jumping reach. I think this guy is just as good as the Liverpool defender. And yet he's listed as a squad player at a side who finished lower down in the table. Slightly confused by that one, but that could be a very good signing. We'll see if we can spot one more move, and hopefully it'll be a club that we have not mentioned yet. There was a lot of deadline day moves, but it looks like that is about it for the early window. We find a player leaving, actually, in Mario Vranken, heading up to Scotland to join Celtic. But past that, we're going to simulate ahead now to the beginning of September. We'll get a look at the European groups, which will have 8 Premier League clubs involved. So we get an extra little look in the Europa League with 3 teams there. And then we'll see how the very early stages of the Premier League are going and how the rest of the summer transfer window pans out. We have now simulated ahead to the start of September, but I'm actually going to start off with a couple of competitions that I normally forget about. They aren't the biggest competitions, but they are still trophies, so I should still show them, really. We're going to start with the UEFA Super Cup, which matched Champions League winners Manchester City against Europa League winners Liverpool, so heavy English representation in this game, and it was Manchester City who take the Super Cup. Liverpool actually did take an early lead through David Webber. I feel like that's a name that we have seen before, but he's actually breaking out into an elite forward. I think we saw him very early on in his career, and he scored in a cup final that didn't really matter, I think. So again, he scores, and they still lose. But Benjamin Sesko, Erling Haaland, and Tim Eaves actually getting on the score sheet, the elite English fullback that Man City have had for quite a long time, pops up with a goal. And that was all inside 20 minutes. So that was a very, very fast final. And the other final to mention is the Community Shield, which pitted Manchester City versus Chelsea. Chelsea won the FA Cup and the Premier League, so it went down to the team that finished second in the Premier League. And Manchester City actually sealed their second piece of silverware, although I think the Community Shield is first, so technically this was the first one. But Fortunato scored within the first minute of the game. This is Massimo Fortunato, who came in last season from Roma for £79 million. We did talk about him at the time. He actually had a pretty decent first season, and he has popped up with a goal in a cup final. So a pretty good start from overall. Kylian Mbappe with a fast response. Benjamin Sesko seems to be returning to some form. 3 goals in 2 cup finals. Not too bad. But Vinicius popped up with a goal to make it 3-2. But Manchester City hold on to get, as I said, 2 pieces of silverware within the first month of the season. Also, both keepers against Man City played 5s. Conspiracy? So bringing it back around now, we get to the Europa Conference League group stages. It is Tottenham who will be England's representative for this season. They're drawn into Group A alongside Brøndby, Dinamo Moscow and FK Sarajevo of Bosnia. Spurs should win this group. I would even predict that they probably should go 6 for 6. I think Dinamo may well come second. I'll put Brøndby third and FK Sarajevo for 4th. Europa League-wise, we're looking for 3 sides, and we start off in Group B, where Arsenal have been drawn alongside Hertha Berlin, BST Young Boys, and KV Mechelen. Hertha Berlin are going to be the tricky side of that group. They always have so much money in Football Manager that they spend insanely. So I would predict that maybe Hertha Berlin sneak that group with Arsenal in second. I'm going to put Young Boys for third and Mechelen in 4th. We head down to Group E, where we find Manchester United alongside more German opposition in Bayer Leverkusen, and then Red Star and FCSB. A very similar group to what Arsenal has. I think obviously Leverkusen are the big challenge in this one. Red Star and FCSB will probably be fighting for 3rd and 4th. And then we head down right to the bottom for Group H, where we find Sheffield United, who will face Roma, Zenit, and Dinamo Tbilisi. This more of a 3-way battle group, I think. I'm going to put it as it sits now, though. I think Sheffield United can qualify ahead of Zenit, but I think Roma will probably top the group. And then shifting up to the Champions League, where we find the Premier League champions Chelsea drawn into Group B alongside Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, and RB Salzburg. 3 sides that we're pretty familiar with at this level by this point. I think Chelsea will top the group. Inter and Atletico obviously are very difficult draws. I think Atletico may well come second and Inter to drop down into the Europa League. We look at Group C, where we find Liverpool alongside Wolfsburg, Galatasaray and Club Brugge. I think one of the better groups that Liverpool could have drawn out here, especially only coming into the Champions League, having come 3rd in the Premier League. But I imagine they top that group. I'll put Wolfsburg through with them. Let's put Bruges for 3rd. We go down to Group E, where we find Manchester City drawn alongside PSG, Celtic and Lazio. That is a very interesting group. Celtic have come along quite well in this save and are certainly a side that can make the knockout stages. But when you put them alongside sides like Man City and PSG, I'm not sure they quite have that battle in them. I think Man City will top the group because PSG haven't been amazing in this save. I'll put Lazio for 3rd and Celtic for 4th. We keep going down. Where am I looking? I've lost a team. Newcastle. There they are. Newcastle's the 4th representative. I'm not used to them being in the Champions League yet. Obviously, they did get 4th last season. They're in a group alongside Dortmund, Juventus and Porto. That is a pretty rough group. I imagine it's going to be a very, very close one, though. I think Juventus may well top it. I'm going to back Newcastle to get 2nd, with Dortmund 3rd and Porto 4th. But honestly, that group could go anyway. And now we have a clean slate to check out how the rest of the summer transfer window went. And it is very Manchester United dominated at the top. Though you will find a player that we did mention, Balazs Pushtai, who was listed as the best left-back in the Premier League, but was bizarrely transfer listed, has actually made a move from Manchester United to Newcastle, who were one of the sides interested. That is a £55 million move. And seemingly Newcastle's only real big move of the window. They're not going to keep splashing 50 million multiple times every time. They do it just the once in this window. Where we see here Manchester United using that money and more, £92 million on Hertha Berlin's Emir Saglan, a German striker. Yeah, I can see why he was so expensive. Has spent his entire career at Hertha Berlin after coming through the academy there. Has been pretty darn impressive and has hit 20 goal seasons in his past 2 years with the Berlin club. And now comes in at Manchester United on the big money. He is going to have to produce pretty quickly. And actually, there was a near-on swap deal, because Manchester United's other move was Thanasis, a player who we have seen a little bit of, was at Arsenal, came through their academy, ended up going to Newcastle, a couple seasons ago. Didn't play a whole lot, but now Man United paying big money for him to just be a squad player for now. So that could be a very strange move eventually. I'd imagine Pushtai is an important player. He is. I think Newcastle have 100% won that deal. They barely played Thanasis anyway, and they get an elite level fullback whilst making an £11 million profit. Yeah, I don't understand that one from Man United. It's very Manchester United transfer policy, that. But moving straight down, a very interesting player coming to the Premier League, Nuno Mendes, coming from PSG. Obviously starts the save there on loan. Made that permanent move for 34 million. Has been consistently performing for PSG. Never left though. But at age 30, he finally comes over to the Premier League for just under £60 million. Chelsea certainly don't want to give up their Premier League crown anytime soon. Look who's back. It's Mark. Mark was, Manchester City youth player. Sheffield United took a big chance on him, to be honest, and it worked out pretty well. Then Bayern came in last season, and he played bit part, but now gets Bayern slightly lost a little bit of money on him there. But Mark is back in the Premier League after just 1 year away. Only listed as a squad player, though. But we'll see how much game time he actually gets for Arsenal. Cole Palmer gets a good move. Okay, so Leeds, despite the Tycoon takeover, the relegation still means that they have to sell players. And it's Norwich and Sheffield United benefiting. Cole Palmer heading to Norwich for a huge fee. Potentially over £50 million. If Norwich get relegated this season, that's going to look like an absolutely terrible investment. But if they stay up and have as good, if not a slightly better season than they did last year, when they finished, I think, 10th or 11th, then it's a brilliant investment. It's a risk. Cole Palmer, obviously, a very good player. And then Sheffield United doing it again, a player who has just turned 30, and Gabriel Pirani comes in from Leeds. Over 230 Premier League appearances for them. And has started pretty solidly for Sheffield United, actually. Just under £40 million, the transfer for now, could go over that. Spurs definitely being intriguing this window. Liam Delap's in. Santiago Martinez Ruiz coming in from Liverpool. Just 22 years of age. And when he did play for Liverpool, he was reasonable. A few bench appearances, quite a few starts though still in there, but Spurs certainly trying to get back into being able to compete with the big six. Newcastle have kind of replaced Tottenham. But Sheffield United, it's happened again. Sheffield United get another new goalkeeper. How many times has this happened in the save? It's Justin Bijlow coming in from AS Monaco in this case. Okay, yep, another new goalkeeper. This is happening a lot, but this is fine. Curtis Jones is back in the Premier League. He joins Newcastle, £35.5 million. Burnley getting a lot of money. That's good for them. Though, have they spent any? Not really. Okay, interesting. They sell Antonio Sablone, a Dutch centre-back. Quite a lot of money. Haven't reinvested it yet, though. We see David Ayala leaving. Arthur Theat makes an interesting move, though. He leaves Spurs and heads to Newcastle. We see Alex Scott heading to Brighton after Everton's relegation. We've got another Spaniard with a very middle-aged Englishman's name in Brian, a central midfielder coming in from Granada. I'm never sure how to pronounce Granada, but I'm going with Granada. I could be wrong there. He's £30 million. Has been playing pretty well in Spain, to be fair. Technically and vision-wise, mentally he's brilliant, and physically he's pretty darn good as well. And there may be a few little technical areas that you'd like to see a little bit higher, but that's a pretty solid player, especially even just to be a squad member as well. See, Boubacar Kamara finally leaves Tottenham. He's been there for a very long time. Celtic losing another player to the Premier League in Guillaume Biro heading to Liverpool. He's just listed as a squad player, so I don't know how much we'll see of him. You see, we know Arsenal brought in Mark. They also bring in Ben Nelson, a centre-back from Celtic, who did have a stint at Leicester, actually, because he was a Leicester Academy graduate. Headed off to Celtic for £6 million. They get a £21 million profit on him. We find Fulham and Reading a little bit further down, two sides we've not mentioned yet. Fulham bring in Giovanni, who we saw scored in the playoff final for Blackburn, that they ended up losing to Derby. But he gets into the Premier League anyway. £27 million move to Fulham. There is a player involved in this as well. There's two players involved in this. Chris Jones and Funbi Ahmad. I might wait on those ones, though, because Blackburn are side likely to come back soon to the Premier League. We'll see if they really make any impact. But Reading's transfer as well is Jordi Escobar for a potential just over £30 million for a guy who is 30, but he is pretty darn good. And you can notice there, 3 goals in his first 3 Premier League games after 21 in the second tier of Spain last season. So he is in a very, very good run of form. If we keep working down, we see a few more Manchester City transfers. Matvey Safonov is Manchester City's new goalkeeper. I'd imagine Ederson has retired. So I have done a little bit of searching. Ederson has indeed just retired at the end of last season. Goes out on a little bit of a low. Well, I say a little bit of a low. They did win the Champions League, so actually that's a pretty big high to go out on realistically. But Ederson has indeed retired. So there, as mentioned, Safonov, his replacement, which means have Norwich got another goalkeeper, or are they in a bit of a weird situation? If we look at it, Robert Sanchez is their new signing. Just over £5 million from Everton. I think he's only just joined as well. Robert Sanchez is going to be Norwich's starting keeper. So at least they managed to get a replacement in. Speaking of goalkeepers, though, Carl Jakob Hein is back. And he is going to be Reading's starting keeper. I'm just going to say, the last couple of times, well, 2 out of the 3 times he's been a starting Premier League goalkeeper, his side have been relegated. I don't mean to concern you there, Reading fans, but Carl Jakob Hein is a bit of a relegation merchant. But we'll see how that pans out. Fulham have actually made a couple moves because they've brought in Oliver Ertsen as well. From RB Leipzig, a centre-back who looks reasonably decent, listed as an important player. I think for Fulham, yeah, that's a very good player realistically. I'm interested by Bruno Iglesias heading to Manchester City, who they've literally just signed and listed as surplus to requirements. Sometimes I do not understand anything. You see, West Ham, their biggest move is Nathaniel Mbuku from Fulham. A lot of sort of players in their early 30s making moves. You see, Rob Cooper, this is a new gen player, going from Stoke to Brentford. Stoke, a club we haven't seen yet in this save, but Rob Cooper will instantly become a key player in this Brentford squad, and he's had a pretty good start. So I was going to say, what is his first Premier League season? He played one game for Arsenal in 2029-30, so it technically wasn't his Premier League debut, but it kind of basically was. You see Brighton making a couple moves. One, to bring in Guillaume Montoya from Bournemouth, who were obviously relegated. They also bring in Marc Alvarez from Celtic, a Spanish centre-back. A lot of players are coming from Celtic. So it is going to be interesting to see how they fare in the Champions League, especially with a squad that does appear to have been weakened. We keep moving down a little bit. We find Leicester bringing in Thales Magno from Juventus. That's a forward/winger. Burnley in Arnor Sigurdsson, a Icelandic right back who is already listed as surplus to requirements and wanted. Again, sometimes I really, really don't understand. I mean, this is an interesting one. Newcastle very much going with experience in Federico Valverde, giving him a one-year deal after a £13.5 million move. Has still been playing really well, to be fair, so you can get a year like that out of him. That's a pretty good move. We find Derby's biggest move is Luke Dialton, coming in from Bournemouth, listed as a squad player. Again, I don't see how Derby end up doing very well. Wolves' biggest move is Andrew, the Irish centre-back, who I believe is Norwich in real life. Yeah. I think most people do just call him Andrew because his last name is very difficult to pronounce for English people. Physically, very, very good. Again, just technicals are in the right areas. So, reasonably decent. And as a squad player as well, fits pretty darn well. Outside of that, though, we're going to have a quick look at how the Premier League table stacks up. 3 games in. And hello, Brighton! In their first season back, after 1 away, Brighton are top of the Premier League after 3 games. Wins over West Ham and Wolves, and a draw at home to Arsenal have them sat top of the pile. I seem to remember Brighton doing this a few years ago. I might have looked to see if I can remember which season it was. I think it may have been the 24-20. It was either 24-25 or 27-28. Because both times they had really good seasons, and one of them they got off to a really good start, and then they immediately got relegated the year after. I mean, Brighton topping the way. Nobody perfect either, which is interesting. Man City right in behind. Chelsea have suffered 2 draws, though they were Arsenal and Manchester City, which explains where Man City's draw was. Wolves have got off to a nice start. They're up in 5th. Man United down in 9th. We look to the bottom. Leicester, who normally get off to really good starts, have got off to a very slow one. Losses to Reading and Southampton are slightly concerning. Derby do have a point already in a draw with Burnley, and Brentford currently propping up the table with 3-1 and 4-0 defeats to Norwich and West Ham, respectively. We have a very quick look at the player stats to the side as well. Liam Delap is off to a very good start, 4 in 3, alongside Benjamin Sesko with 4 in 3. And then Jordi Escobar, who we previously mentioned, he's in his first Premier League season. Reading up in 10th currently, so a decent start. We see assists. We actually find a Brighton player, and Callum White has come in. Again, another player who's come from Celtic, was actually in the Forest Academy for a very long time, played a few times for Forest in their senior squad. Now here at Brighton, trying to make a name for himself. We see a few names on clean sheets in Ramsdale, Green and Popovic. But outside of that, we are now ready to jump ahead to November and take a proper dive into the Premier League table and the statistics, where we'll be roughly 10 games into the season. Jumping back into the save on the 2nd of November 2032, and we have a pretty close Premier League table, closer than we've seen in a little while. It is Manchester City who top the way, but they have suffered a couple of defeats already at home against Sheffield United and Manchester United. So they're only 1 point clear of Liverpool, who are only 1 point clear themselves of Chelsea and Newcastle, who have had a very good run in the last 7 games. I did notice, I think they were 17th of the September stop-off. So a very good recovery by them. And then we see the likes of Manchester United, Arsenal and Tottenham, regular teams up there as well. Like Brighton are hanging on in there-ish. 16 points in 10 for them. Leicester have recovered a little bit. They picked up 10 in the last 7. We're looking at the bottom. Brentford haven't got any more points. So that's a pretty sad time. They've lost all 7 in a row there. Derby have picked up a win. They actually did beat Brentford, so I'm not really sure how much to add to that. But I think Derby and Brentford are already looking in a bit of trouble. And then it's Fulham, whose only win is over Manchester United. Bit of a strange situation there. And they've had draws with Chelsea and Sheffield United as well. Fulham losing strange games, or they've just had a very, very tough start to the season and they get a decent run in the next 9 or so games. I think the biggest thing to take away from this table so far, though, is actually just how close it is and how close it is throughout. Normally we get little groups that are just clumped together. This is relatively well strewn out, which is good to see, because it was slightly worrying that, Man City and Chelsea were the top 2, and then there was kind of 4 teams in behind, and then there was kind of 3, and then everybody else. It's nice to see an actual spread in the Premier League. But we might as well take a look at the team and player stats. If it wants to load, that would be ideal. There we go. Team stats wise, if we take a look at goals scored, it's Chelsea leading the way with 27, Man City 24, Liverpool 23. So Liverpool slightly catching up to Man City and Chelsea, which is nice. On the other side of things, Brentford, if you're only scoring 5 goals in 10 games, you are not going to get very far. Fulham with only 9 as well, and Norwich just 10. We look at the conceded side of things. Newcastle again. They were very good at not conceding last season. And they're here again as the best team so far with just 7. Liverpool with 9 and Arsenal and Man United with 10 each. Interesting to see that Man City 11 conceded, Chelsea 13. So they're certainly not as good defensively as they have been, which is where the gaps are coming at then. We look at most conceded, Derby conceding 2.5 goals a game. That is an ouch. And Brentford scoring only 5, conceding 23. Jumping into the player stats, and we are certainly starting to see some new names cropping up. The changeover's starting to happen. It's David Pena who leads the way. We did see him last season where he bagged 17 goals for Arsenal. This year, 9 in his first 10. He's almost at a goal a game. So he is looking like he could be an unreal player for a very, very long time to come. £2.5 million. Possibly the transfer of the save right there from Arsenal. We see Indino, who is going to be a regular here, isn't he? And it's going to wind me up because I can't say his name properly. But Erling Haaland is still here with 7. We've got David Webber, the young Liverpool forward, who has become the first choice ahead of Odsonne Edouard now. He is up on 6, alongside Ben Jackson for Southampton, who was a former Liverpool player. Did get 26 appearances for Liverpool, but now the star man at Southampton. And there is some very intriguing interest in him. He's a very, very good player. Southampton really don't want to lose him. A lot of guys there on 5 as well, like Sesko, Harvey Elliott, Satriano and Jefferson both still here. Saglam in his first season in the Premier League. And Mohamed Amora, who was quite high up last season for Newcastle, he's there on 5 as well. We head down to assists. We've actually got a 4-way tie in which we see 2 Manchester City players on very different ends of their careers. Federico Chiesa approaching the end. Tim Eaves still very much a good amount of career ahead of him. Then we see Christian Volpato of West Ham and Ansu Fati of Liverpool. And a lot of guys on 3. So nobody really taking over the assist charts yet. If we look at key passes, that's actually led by Eduardo Camavinga, who is one of the men on 3 assists, with Reece James right in behind, and yet he has no assists. Fran Puigmal is an interesting one for Spurs. Came in from PSG in 2030 for just under 50 million. He's got 2 goals and 3 assists, and he's playing very, very well this season. And then we see Gassmanzade there for Aston Villa. He's doing pretty well. He's got 23 key passes. Chances created actually starts with Dominic Szoboszlai on 7, with Harvey Elliott and a few other guys on 6. David Webber actually on chances created as well as scoring goals. So he's having a very impressive season. Camavinga here with 6 as well. If we jump down to more of the defensive statistics, tackles won has 2 players in Wolves' Renan and Brentford's Guillaume Bairo. Then Balazs Pushtai right in behind for Newcastle alongside Reece James. Key tackles, a couple of guys have 4. They are Ali Rayner of Leicester and Mark Alvarez of Brighton. See Wesley Fofana leading clearances for Newcastle. And Pedro Afonso there for Newcastle as well on header percentage 1. You see shots blocked is led by Diego Montero. And who's doing the most fouls? Valero Bogard, Tino Livramento, Herculano Franco, and Rob Cooper up there on fouls as well. And to wrap up the November stop-off, we'll have a look at conceded as well. Just 7 conceded for Osvaldo Fernando of the regular starting goalkeepers. Pascal Traore there with 9 and Ergatan Sakir with 10. Actually alongside Aaron Ramsdale and Robert Sanchez as well, just 10 in his 7 games. He has stepped aside for Carlo Latica a couple of times. But looking at the XG prevented, I mean, Alexander Popovic, the Brighton goalkeeper, what a start to the season he's having. I've clicked the wrong bit there, and now it won't go away. How have I broken it? There we go. I think I broke it. We look at how his season's going, and unbelievable start. Just the 3 clean sheets, but only 11 conceded in 10 is very, very impressive from him. Etienne Green having a very good year for Wolves, alongside Sakir and Traore. Robert Sanchez as well. We look at the bottom end of things. This is what I meant. Carl Jakob Hein, relegation merchant. Although if we actually look at it, Reading are 12th. So even with his attempts to seemingly throw games, having a -6 XG, Reading's still actually doing pretty well. And only 4 points off Europe. I'm just saying, could Reading make a run for Europe? That would be entertaining. But I have actually got one more thing to check. Manager movements is the one thing I missed. And Darren Ferguson, well, his Premier League career, quite a lot shorter than his dad's. He is gone by the end of September, and I just noticed who Brentford have hired. Harry Maguire is a Premier League manager. He's got, what's that, UEFA B licence? Or that might be the UEFA A, actually. He's not very high up in that, let's be honest. But Harry Maguire a Premier League manager playing a 4-2-3-1 wide gegenpress. Okay. Well, we'll see his career. We knew he went to Inter Milan, moved around in Italy to Lazio, then to Spain with Valencia to end his career. 1 year as manager of Sunderland, and now at Brentford. He's not going to be a Premier League manager for very long, unless he does a miracle with Brentford. But I guess we'll find out, because the next stop-off point is the beginning of January. So in that one, we can take a look at how the European groups panned out, and we'll get another look at the Premier League table roughly halfway through the season. We've now moved ahead to the 1st of January, which means the Ballon d'Or award has been handed out, and it is another one for Kylian Mbappe. I believe that is his 7th Ballon d'Or award in this save. Yeremy Pino and Erling Haaland, both at Manchester City, in 2nd and 3rd, respectively. The new gens haven't quite broken through yet, but Kylian Mbappe, 7 Ballon d'Ors. We're getting back to club focuses, and we're back looking at the European competitions, starting off with the Europa Conference League. Now that the group stages have completed, Spurs do indeed top Group A in the Europa Conference League. I said they should go 6 for 6. They actually didn't. They lost in Denmark against Brøndby, which is certainly an interesting defeat, but they still advanced through pretty comfortably. And actually, with that win that Brøndby got, that was enough to get them through in 2nd place. So well done to them, but Spurs will advance straight to the last 16 stage. Europa League time with 3 sides to look for, and Arsenal actually top Group B. I know I think I predicted Hertha Berlin to actually finish there, but it is Arsenal who go undefeated in the group stage. They did have a 1-1 draw with Hertha Berlin at home and a 1-1 draw in Switzerland against Young Boys, but 4 wins on top of that, more than enough to win the group ahead of Hertha Berlin. We look down to Group E, where we find Manchester United, who almost went 6 for 6. Just the 1 draw in there away at Bayer Leverkusen. They do top the group, though, and Leverkusen advance through comfortably with them. Going down to the bottom group in Group H, wow. Sheffield United, 16 points in a group that contained Roma and Zenit. The only draw was at home against Zenit. They beat Roma twice and once in Rome. Both 3-2 wins. And they beat Zenit 4-0. Wherever that game was played. It was in FM with the later updates. Russian teams don't play in Russia. I think this update old enough to do that? I'm not actually 100% sure. Can't exactly remember when this save started. I'm going to have to look at that. Let's find the away game. Yeah. So it was indeed played at a neutral venue. It was actually played at, that's the Ajax Stadium, isn't it? Is this the Ajax Stadium? Or it might just be the Dutch National Stadium, which is named after Klaas-Jan Huntelaar, which is extremely interesting. Stadium literally built in 2021 in Amsterdam. No one plays here, though. So then Sheffield United played there. Okay. Slightly off track, but interesting nonetheless. But that means that all 3 English sides will not come in until the last 16 stage. So it's all going well so far. And then Champions League-wise for the English sides, we start in Group B with Chelsea. They do actually lose a game in the group stage. They lost at home against Inter Milan, actually. But 5 wins from the other 5 games mean 15 points and topping the group. Only 2 points ahead of said Inter Milan, though, so not a walk in the park by any means, but they do get through relatively comfortably. We head down to Group C, where we find Liverpool going 6 for 6 in a group that I did expect them to do that. No massive wins, a few 3-1s. There was a 3-0 at Club Brugge. They get through alongside Wolfsburg in that group. Group E, Manchester City go undefeated, but there's 3 draws in there. They actually drew all 3 away games 1-1. So draws with PSG, Celtic and Lazio, but beat them all at the Etihad. And 12 points was enough to top the group, ahead of PSG, who only get 10 points. They had, obviously, the loss at the Etihad, and they actually lost at home to Lazio as well, which is very not a good result. PSG win that one, they top the group, so that's cost them a little bit there. But the other team to look for is Newcastle, and I said this group could go any way. Newcastle are out of Europe entirely. Just the 6 points coming from the group. No drawn games, which actually surprises me. Newcastle lose both games against Juventus and both away ties against Porto and Dortmund. They did get 2 home wins over Dortmund and Porto, but they are not enough, and Newcastle will go out entirely at the group stage. That means that getting to the knockouts, there are only 3 English sides to look for. They all won their groups, so they'll start the first legs away from home. Liverpool are drawn against Barcelona, which is certainly one of the trickier ties. I still think Liverpool will get through that, but it was maybe the worst tie they could have got. Man City will play Inter Milan, which actually is another not very easy one. They seem to have got the really tricky ones there. And then Chelsea will take on Shakhtar Donetsk. Chelsea are probably the happiest of the 3. I think all 3 can make the quarterfinals, though. Shifting into the manager movements of the Premier League, and we have had some very, very interesting ones. The first one after the November stop-off point was Leicester, who I said were actually recovering. They decided they weren't doing enough, and Arne Slot is sacked near the end of November, and he has recently been replaced by another very familiar name in football, Dries Mertens, who actually retired playing from Napoli at the end of the real-life season and was the manager mere 2 years later. Has bounced around a little bit with Germany. He's been everywhere. Italy, Germany, Spain, back to Italy, and now to England in charge of Leicester City at the age of 45. Dries Mertens, Premier League manager. We have had some very strange Premier League managers. And then the 2 other sackings, really, really big ones. Arsenal and Manchester United, both sacking their managers in December. Arsenal were first to move on the 12th of December, firing Jurgen Klopp. Currently caretaker manager in Kevin Betsy, but I imagine we will get a hiring pretty quickly. I'm imagining he's probably the first Premier League manager to come from the Seychelles. I can't imagine there's been one previously. And then Manchester United just 10 days later, sacking Luis Enrique. Solomon Woods becomes the caretaker manager for a second time inside, well, probably just over the span of a year. Twice he's been in charge of this team. I'm now very intrigued to see what the Premier League table looks like if Arsenal, Leicester and Manchester United are sacking managers. Well, here it is, and look at Sheffield United. Oh my word, okay. They are definitely for real. And Manchester City and Liverpool is the title battle this time around. Chelsea are a little bit behind. 7 behind Man City and 6 behind Liverpool. They can get back ahead of Sheffield United because Sheffield have played 1 game extra. And actually Newcastle can get ahead of Sheffield United as well. Manchester United have had a pretty bad time of it. They are quite a way adrift. Arsenal are a little bit more involved, but I guess you can see why they've sacked Jurgen Klopp. They want Champions League football. It's not coming at the moment. We look a little bit further down, we see Spurs are very much still in the European fight. And a lot of teams are still in a European fight. Like Leicester, just 20 points from their first 21 games. But they're also only 11 points off 7th. There is a lot going on this season, and a lot of teams could end up pretty much anywhere. By the way, great effort from Derby so far. 17 points. They are 3 adrift, but win that extra game that they've got over the likes of Leicester, Burnley, West Ham. Almost everyone above them has played a game more. If Derby win that game, they are very much in with a chance of staying up. I have to say, Fulham and Brentford look pretty dead. Brentford have won a couple of games under Harry Maguire. They've beaten Aston Villa and Burnley, so proof that Harry Maguire is a tactical genius with his 4-2-3-1 gegenpress. He knows how to play FM properly. If we take a very quick look at the player stats, it's Manchester City, Benjamin Sesko and Erling Haaland leading the way. David Pena has definitely cooled off, because he had, 9 in his first 10. He's only scored 3 in his next 10. And Arsenal have dropped off, and obviously the firing of Jurgen Klopp has come with that as well. If we look to assists, it's again Manchester City dominating the way with Fortunato and Pino. Shortire in behind there, though, for Sheffield United. Clean sheets wise, it is Fernando of Newcastle leading the way with 12. Osvaldo Fernando, I was trying to remember his first name. But Justin Bilo, 10 for him as well. Sheffield United are serious Champions League position contenders. That is not something I expected to say at the start of this save, but as it's gone on, gradually, it has looked a lot more likely. But that's where the January stop-off comes to an end. The next pause point will be the beginning of February, where we'll get the January transfer window summarised, and we'll take another quick look at the Premier League table, roughly 3 or 4 games further on. We picked the save up on the 3rd of February at the closing of the January transfer window. And if you do kind of have a quick look down, it's been reasonably quiet. The biggest transfer was actually an out. It was Yunus Musa leaving Manchester United to head to Barcelona for a potential £40 million. And there's no other 2033 transfers on the first page. That's an out as well in Stanislav Sebek heading to Dortmund. Who was the most expensive in? Oh, this is big for Southampton though. Osam Sarawi is gone. He's headed off to Roma. He is now 31, so had broken into his 30s, but have been a very, very good player for Southampton through the save. Well, I say through the save. Through their time back in the Premier League. Picked him up for just 2.7 million. Such a brilliant signing, to be fair. Had started to tail off, to be fair. But he'd always been there. He'd always been creating chances. Just no one was necessarily taking them. But he now heads off to Roma, so an interesting player gone there. Another player gone. Who is the biggest in? There it is. £18 million is the biggest transfer into the Premier League in the January window. It was pretty quiet, huh? Inol Ortiz, a Costa Rican right winger, coming in from Sporting Braga. Started off in Costa Rica with Saprissa, spent just a year and a half with Braga, was actually having a pretty good season this year, and heads to Spurs, has made his Premier League debut, and did get an assist. So a good start for Enel Ortiz. We'll see how he gets on. That's another player leaving. Another leaving. Man City making a few moves. Conor Gallagher's heading off to Spain with Barcelona. And Stefan Costasilla was a player that I actually did mention. And I was hoping that we'd actually see him play a bit for Manchester City. It was a long time ago, his move, eh? Spent a season on loan at West Ham, which I think is where we noticed him. But Man City only playing 5 times so far this season in the Premier League. Only 2 starts. And Leeds in the Championship, obviously with their Tycoon takeover, 17.25 million to bring him in. We finally find another transfer in. Southampton have the second biggest move of the window, and it involves Braga again. So Braga providing the 2 biggest Premier League ins. It's El Chadale Bitshiabu. I've said that horrendously wrong. Looks like a really good player, to be fair. Only brought in as a squad player, but still only 27 years of age. Was at PSG through the academy, through the senior team, a few different loan spells, and then finally settled at Braga. Again, another player who was having a really, really good season with Braga this year. It's got me intrigued. I do have Portugal loaded. Braga only 5th, though, which is slightly surprising for those two players to have played so well. And it's going to be interesting to see, well, I mean, we're probably not going to see it, but if they struggle a little bit over the next few months, having lost those two players, we see another out. I mean, FC Utrecht are spending more than Premier League clubs in the January window. Santiago Villalpando is gone, becomes a key player for FC Utrecht. But for Spurs, £4.3 million in 28-29. And yeah, did actually play 20 times this season. 14 substitute appearances, made 4 times as well, but he does head off to FC Utrecht to get regular football. But this window has been very, very quiet. Another out in James Tizard heading to the Championship. Another out in Oscar Calderon. So the Premier League kind of resetting itself a little bit in getting a lot of players out. Another out. Wow, yeah, this has been a very, very quiet window. There's just a lot of players leaving. There is another in here, Southampton, bringing in Leo Mana, a Brazilian right-back who will be a regular starter for them, has made his debut. What a quiet window. That's definitely the quietest one we've seen. Well, let's take a look then at the Premier League table and how it stands now 25 games into the season. And it's Liverpool topping the way for the first time in a very, very long time. There is a slight pull away with Man City and Chelsea, though Sheffield United 3 points clear of Arsenal and Newcastle. This is genuinely on for them to potentially get a top 4 finish and Champions League football for the first time. That would be absolutely sensational. We see there is very much a battle for... I mean, Spurs are still technically in the race for Champions League. They're only 4 points behind Sheffield United, but they have played a game more. We see it's kind of Sheffield United, Arsenal, Newcastle, Man United and Spurs all battling it out. I know Chelsea are only 7 clear of Arsenal, but that feels like enough for a side like Chelsea. And then there's a big, big gap from 8th down to 9th, which is Norwich. So Norwich, Brighton still up there as well, and Reading having another very good season, which is good to see. We look towards the bottom of the league. Brentford have added another win. We'll see who that was over. It was actually over Norwich, who were having a good season, so there you go. But Fulham looking in trouble as well. But they could get within 2 points of Burnley should they win a game in hand. And Derby, a win would get them out the relegation zone entirely. Honestly, I'm really surprised by how well Derby have done, but pleasantly surprised. Again, we can get another really fast look at the player stats just before we move on to April. Benjamin Sesko is very much back, leading the way with 19 goals. Martin Satriano's still going strong, 15 for him. Erling Haaland, 14. Man City still dominating the assists. Fernando still leading the Golden Glove. And other than that, we are now ready to move on to the start of February, where we're going to get a catch-up on the European knockout stages, the last 16 phases, where we've got a lot of English teams to catch up with at that point. And then getting another look at the Premier League table as it starts to prep the run-in, and we'll get a deep dive into some more player and team stats. We picked the save up on the 1st of April, and we're going to start off by looking at how the last 16 phases of the European club competitions have gotten on, starting with the Europa Conference League and Tottenham. They ended up drawing OGC Nice in the last 16 phase. They advanced through that pretty handily, actually, 4-0. and they will meet FC Utrecht, a side we mentioned during the January transfer window. They will actually play them in the quarterfinals after they came through against Austrian opposition in Admiraal Wacker. So Spurs versus FC Utrecht. There is a potential Spurs versus Rangers in the semi-finals. That would be very intriguing. Moving on to the Europa League last 16 knockout stage, where we've got 3 Premier League sides to look for, and it's starting with Manchester United, and they are out on penalties. They did get a pretty tough tie in Porto, but still one that you would expect Manchester United to come through. But as we're here, they didn't. Out on penalties. However, another United have advanced through. Sheffield United do make the quarterfinals. They get past FC Copenhagen 3-1. They will take on Spanish opposition in Athletic Bilbao, which is going to make for a very interesting tie. And looking down for Arsenal, they were in the bottom part of the bracket and got a very, very tricky draw in Atletico Madrid. But they came through 4-3. They now take on RB Leipzig in the quarterfinals, who, interestingly, and this is something I just randomly found out in the save, actually, before I started recording this video, RB Leipzig won their first Bundesliga title last season. However, they then got knocked out in the Champions League group stages. So, you win some, you lose some. But they have knocked out Real Madrid in the last 16, so that seems pretty successful. Arsenal might be in some trouble. Sheffield United might be England's best hope for a Europa League win. And then Champions League-wise, England had 3 sides progress after Newcastle went out in the group stage. Manchester City, as we mentioned, playing Inter Milan. They actually came through 5-0. Remarkably easier than I expected. However, we get the regular final in the quarterfinals because Chelsea get past Shakhtar Donetsk 7-1, and Manchester City versus Chelsea is now set up for the quarterfinals. Liverpool needed penalties to get past Barcelona, but they come out on the good side of it, and they will take on Real Sociedad in the quarterfinals. So again, well, not again, in this case, Liverpool have probably got the much better tie. Real Sociedad knocking out Borussia Dortmund in the end 4-2. Liverpool have a nice little path to the final there. If they overcome Sociedad, it's Wolfsburg or AC Milan. I think Liverpool can make it. Manager movements has completely lost the plot since the last time we checked. We knew that Jurgen Klopp and Luis Enrique had been sacked. There's a lot of stuff to try and cover, though, now. So we get to the 12th of February, and Xavi is sacked by Newcastle. He is temporarily replaced by Adam Lallana, which is just an interesting situation. But he has since been replaced just yesterday. In fact, 3 sides hired their managers yesterday. 3 of the big 6, no less, hired new managers literally yesterday. Marco Rose, the German manager, who was actually the German national team boss, ends up taking over at Newcastle. That does remind me, I don't think I ever looked at how the European competitions went in 2032, did I? I was meant to do that at the beginning of the video. I will put that in at some point before the end of this video. I will check out how the European Championships went. But Marco Rose was Germany manager, now Newcastle manager. Then, just a week after the... actually, no, I've missed another one. Gini Wijnaldum, 12th of February, also sacked because of fear of relegation. Another familiar name coming in, Vincenzo Montella, who has been Leeds manager. Was he Spurs manager in here? No. Norwich manager, that was it. He was Norwich and then Leeds boss. Was actually at SC Freiburg in Germany, but comes in at Fulham to try and keep them in the Premier League. Then we get to the 19th of February, where 2 more sackings happen. Gregor Sierra sacked by Burnley. He is replaced by Callum Davidson, which is a very interesting hiring. A Scottish manager who was actually the Celtic boss. So Celtic are not only losing players, they're physically losing their manager to the Premier League yet again. That happens a lot. But Callum Davidson is going to try and keep Burnley in the Premier League. Wolves also sacking Frank Lampard, and they turn to Derby manager Joe Garner, which is a very interesting move. So Garner ended his career with Alki in Cyprus. I mean, that's a nice way if you can get it. And then has worked his way up through the English system, to be fair. Morecambe, Preston, Barnsley. Then good success with Derby. Wolves hope that he is the man, I think relatively to keep them up, realistically, would be the aim there. We then go forward. Obviously, Joe Garner left Derby. They needed a new manager. They have hired David Hopkin, not someone I'm familiar with, was Ayr United boss, then Motherwell, then a pretty decently long stint at Rangers, which ended with a sacking, I assume, in 2032. But he now gets a go in the Premier League to try and keep Derby County afloat. I feel less good about Derby staying up now that that's happened. However, final summary, Arsenal and Manchester United have also just hired new managers. Manchester United have hired Simone Inzaghi, who we knew as a former Newcastle manager, actually went off to manage Italy, and then he has binned off Italy to join Manchester United. So obviously some international management stuff has ended at the end of March, and a lot of them have now become league managers again. So Inzaghi comes in at Old Trafford, and Pep Guardiola decides he's had enough with England, and but he's not had enough with England because he's staying in the country, but he's going to have another go at club management. He comes in at Arsenal. So they go from Jurgen Klopp to Pep Guardiola, which is exactly what Liverpool did early on in the save. That was a lot of summarising managers. Let's get back to the league and see how it stands. 30/31 games in, Man City are back at the top on goal difference. It is looking like Manchester City versus Liverpool for the Premier League title. This is Liverpool's best chance in quite a long time. Sheffield United still in the top four, but Arsenal have a chance to get past them. Currently 7th isn't showing as a European spot. That's just because of Manchester City, who I assume have won the League Cup. That is indeed correct. Manchester City have netted their 3rd piece of silverware on the season already. It was, is he Ben Bamba, I believe? Yes, Ben Bamba, the Ivorian reserve forward, who is literally an elite striker and is a squad player and a reserve. That is insane, but that's what happens when you have Haaland and Sesko. Speaking of Haaland, he nets twice, including a penalty that made it 2-0. There was a Spurs response from Jan Bielman, who actually leaves for Nîmes at the end of the season, which is quite interesting. But he does score in a cup final for Spurs. However, Erling Haaland caps it off, 3-1 win, and see 3 trophies already. And I mean, whilst we're looking around, and I realised that I completely forgot to check the Euros at the beginning of the video, it is Germany under Marco Rose who actually win the European Championship. So they are the 2032 winners. The first time that Germany wins it since 1996. They overcome Italy in a penalty shootout. We'll have a look and see if we recognise either of the goal scorers. We see that it went, wow, what a dramatic end to this game. Karim Adeyemi, a player we have not seen in this save because he went to Bayern Munich and has just been hanging out there the whole time. And we might see him. There is a potential transfer in the works for this summer. Maybe we see Karim Adeyemi next season. He scored in the 116th minute. The 123rd minute, Matteo Lovato, a player who we saw for about 5 seconds in the Premier League, just 14 appearances across 2 seasons, scores a dramatic equaliser, and then just missed penalties galore mixed in. And in the end, Nico Schlotterbeck scores the winning penalty. What a final that was for the last 5 minutes. We saw Italy defeat England. We had Germany 4, Spain 3. Germany had some cracking games, didn't they? Belgium. Scotland made the quarterfinals, pretty big for them. Czech Republic as well. France going out in the quarters. Yeah, that's the general gist of the Euros. Germany are your current champions. But getting back to the Premier League, as we look a little bit further down the table, we see the likes of Reading, who have had a really, really good season. They could well confirm a top half finish soon. Norwich up there as well with West Ham and Brighton. We see Villa and Wolves struggling this season. Leicester have had a really, really rough season. And in fact, realistically, Leicester could only be 1 point clear of the relegation zone if Derby could win whatever game they have in hand that seems to have been existing forever. Fulham and Brentford. Brentford aren't officially relegated yet. There's 8 games left and they're 16 points adrift. I mean, cut them now. Brentford are gone. Fulham need a league-wide miracle, realistically, to stay up. Derby's still half a chance. I will be seriously impressed if they can stay up. But since we haven't looked at team and player stats for a while, we will jump into it. It's Chelsea and Man City leading the goal scoring once again. There was 71 each, and Liverpool just in behind on 62. Brentford with just 22 goals on the season. The Southampton and Derby, 29 each. Southampton having a bit of a rough year this year, down in 15th. It's not terrible, but it's not good either. If we look to conceded, we actually find 3 sides. I don't know why that's got a second there, but Arsenal, Liverpool and Newcastle, all with just 29 conceded. Man City and Man United 32. And you can see where Chelsea's issues coming. They're still scoring, but 38 conceded on the season has them only 7th, tied with Spurs. So that has been their realistic issue. If we get into the player statistics, top scorer still led by Benjamin Sesko. He's 5 clear of Erling Haaland and David Pena, who has started to get his scoring boots back. Now under Pep Guardiola, that'll be very interesting to see how many he can get in this next 8 games or so, if Guardiola really gets him going after his great start. Look a little bit further down, Mbappe's there, Jaracen for Wolves still playing pretty darn well. Martin Satriano also there, and Liam Delap with 14 in his first season as a Spurs player. We see, by the way, Dino with 4 free kick goals, and Kai Havertz with 3, and Mbappe with 2. Chelsea love a direct free kick. Dropping down to assists, though, and Shola Shortai has jumped into the lead on that, which is very impressive. 1 ahead of Massimo Fortunato and 3 ahead of Yeremy Pino and Alex Scott for Brighton. A player who was at Everton and Fulham, was pretty good for them, to be fair. But here at Brighton, really taking a step up with 6 goals and 9 assists. Still under a 7 average rating, though. Feels like that should be higher. He's playing very, very well. Well done to him. That is a slightly surprising one, but a nice surprise. Key passes is led by quite a way by Fran Pugmal, the Spanish midfielder, I believe, for Spurs. Winger, sorry. He does look ridiculously good, doesn't he? But nice to see him taking an even bigger step forward for Spurs. Is he wanted by anyone? No, not at the moment, but that is also a very high transfer value. Tayo Adaramola is up here, not a player that I am very familiar with. In his second season with Fulham, 29-year-old fullback, doing very well. Yassine Adli's here as well. Ignacio Lopez for Derby, getting a lot of key passes as well. Spent a lot of time at Hull. That's a very interesting player. Okay. Look to chances created. We actually find Kvaratskhelia. I've probably said that horribly wrong, but he leads the way. Aston Villa player. And then Tommy Doyle in behind for West Ham. And a Reading player in Emikan Gurluk here as well. So a few different names to look at there, which is quite nice. I don't know why indeed he's got the highest cross completion, but okay, that is a little bit odd. Yeremy Pino leading dribbles per 90 ahead of Pedro Neto. Neto, I don't imagine would have played all that much. Yeah, he is joining Inter Milan at the end of his contract. He's played a little bit, and he has played all right when he has appeared, so he's certainly not the cause of Chelsea's minor downfall, but there we go. We head into the defensive statistics. Tackles won is now actually led by the Iranian fullback? Yeah, Ghassan Zadeh leads the way in that. Tim Eaves just 2 behind. James Justin's still here at the age of 35. I mean, that might be Leicester's issue here. The squad is definitely aging. They may need to try and make a few moves in the near future. If they don't want to end up following Leeds and Everton down to the Championship in surprising relegations. Key tackles, though, is a Leicester player, and it's Ali Rayner leading the way by 3 ahead of Mark Alvarez and Tayo Adaramola, who's seemingly having a very good season for Fulham. Yeah, he's having a very, very good season. Was a big transfer last summer. Is actually wanted again by Sheffield United, so this would very much fill the Sheffield United theme of a late 20s, early 30s player that can come in and contribute straight away. We look at blocks, we see Renan. We've got shots blocked is Pham Thanh Nam. He's back again, the Vietnamese player. And Zakiga Lane, another player that we've seen, I think last season we started to see him, has the most fouls on the season. If we look to conceded, it's Pascal Traore, though only 25 appearances. And Juan Musso, who's now Burnley keeper, because Alex Murray is the new Leicester City goalkeeper. Okay. Osvaldo Fernando, just 28 in 28. Aaron Ramsdale, 29 in 29. Bilo, 31 in 31. So, nice little pattern there. And Safanov, how has he been getting on as Man City's keeper? He's had a pretty decent season, to be fair. He's certainly not been bad. I was worried if that would cause a Man City drop-off with Ederson retiring. But it hasn't really. Clean sheets. Justin Bidgelow, Bilo, again, I'm going to say Bidgelow and Bilo near on every time because I really don't know. He might win a Golden Glove. 15 clean sheets for him, 1 ahead of Osvaldo Fernando, who has played 3 less games. So if they happen to tie, Fernando will win it on less games played. Traore's only 3 behind, and he's played even less. So I think Osvaldo Fernando and Pascal Traore are going to be goalkeepers that we're going to be seeing a lot in this save for years to come. If we look at XG prevented, it's Pascal Traore leading the way. Popovic has dropped off a tiny bit. Bilo, Bidgelow, again, is still there. Aaron Ramsdale. Robert Sanchez has had a really good season for Norwich, actually. I was slightly concerned as to how he'd get on. He's not been brilliant, but he's been solid enough to give Norwich a basis. You see, Derby have an Armenian goalkeeper in David Tadvosian, long-time goalkeeper for them, though he's only played 11 times and was a very, very cheap transfer from QPR. And when he has played, he's been very, very good. So, good on him. Okay, I have some apologising to do to Carl Jakob Hein, don't I? Reading have had a very good season, and he's actually been pretty good. I apologise, Carl. I was slagging you off, and you've proven me wrong. Tino Livramento's been in goal. It's happened again. We love seeing outfield players going in goal. Leicester have had, is that 3 different keepers? No. Alex Murray's had a pretty shocking season. I mean, overall, Leicester have had a pretty shocking season. But it is now time to simulate forward to the final day of the season, where we're going to see if we do get a title battle down to the final day between Man City and Liverpool. We're going to see if any relegation places are to play for. They might not be. And then the battle for European places as well. We've arrived on the 15th of May. It is the day of the final set of Premier League fixtures for the season. And there is actually one more manager change. Only 4 days after our April stop-off, Andrea Pirlo actually left Norwich because he has decided that international management is his calling. He has taken over with Italy. Had been a really, really good manager for Norwich, so that is severely unfortunate on their part. However, their new manager is Fabio Carril, comes in from Hellas Verona, which I believe is also where Pirlo came from. It is. So for the second time in a row, Norwich turned to Hellas Verona to get their new manager. Very much a different style of play. So we'll see how this affects Norwich next season. I might be slightly concerned for them, though. I don't know if he's going to do as well as Pirlo has. But, with that said, let's take a look at the Premier League table. 37 games in. What is there to play for? There are bits to play for. Okay, some stuff is still happening then. If we take a look at the top of the table, Liverpool are 1 point away from a first Premier League title since the 2019-20 season. It would have been 13 years since their very first Premier League title. They head away to already relegated Brentford. That is the perfect situation for Liverpool, and they only need a point. This is Liverpool's title. It's near on in the bag, lads. Surely they can't throw this away. But should the near impossible happen, and should Brentford beat Liverpool, Manchester City host Wolves, who have had a very disappointing season, but are safe in 15th. So Wolves have nothing to play for heading to the Etihad. It's a game that Man City should realistically win, but they need an unbelievable amount of help from Brentford. We see Chelsea and Arsenal will be the other Champions League sides. They are confirmed. There is still a battle for third and fourth. That's just for money rather than anything else. And then there is a three-way battle. Manchester United, Sheffield United, and Spurs are all in Europe. But it's a question on who gets Europa League and who plays Europa Conference. Man United are pretty much safe because there has to be a 13-goal swing on 2 accounts. Manchester United head to Leicester, who have had an absolutely shocking season in 16, but they are safe. So again, a match that Man United should be winning. They probably could lose and still get Europa League, so I don't think they're too fussed. The games to look out for, though. Sheffield United, definitely one to look for. They host Newcastle, who will not be playing European football next season after a Champions League campaign last time. The top 8 is weird sometimes. But yeah, that's a very tricky game for Sheffield United. Tottenham head away to Brighton. Brighton currently in 11th. But I mean, look at this. From Villa down to Leicester. Just 5 points separate 10th to 16th. That's 7 teams. By the way, Reading. What a season from Reading. Just stranded in 9th. But an unbelievably good campaign from them. As mentioned, Spurs do head to Brighton. Brighton nothing to play for, but they would love to finish 10th. The top half finish just sounds so much better. So they've got a little bit of pride to play for. But I think Tottenham might be on the steal act again. They stole 7th from Leicester at the end of last season. They could steal 6th from Sheffield United on the final day this season. And then, as mentioned, we've got a lot of teams safe. Newcastle are going to miss Europe. Reading have had an unbelievably good season. And then 10th to 16th, all very close, but all very safe. We have got a relegation battle on our hands. Unfortunately, Derby couldn't sustain their pretty darn decent season. They do indeed go down. They're 5 points adrift of safety. Brentford, awful season, just 14 points, and they are very much gone. So Brentford and Derby have one season back in the Premier League and go down. Thankfully, Brighton have stayed up, so at least we get one. But the battle is Fulham and Burnley. Same points. Fulham have a 3 worse goal difference. Fulham head to Reading on the final day. So not too far to travel. Reading have finished 9th. They have nothing to play for at all. Burnley head to Chelsea. And Chelsea have got 3rd place to play for. So likely Burnley loss opens the door for Fulham to potentially stay up. I don't think Burnley have been relegated in this save at all. I think they've been a Premier League club the whole time. They have. Burnley's last relegation was 2015. We are 18 years on. They could face relegation again. So the only ploy now is to move on a couple more weeks, get all the European finals done, get the Premier League season done, and to summarise the 2032-33 season in its entirety. We return back on the 29th of May. The season is now completed. We're going to start off with the European Cup competitions as we normally do. And it is once again success for the Premier League in the Europa Conference League. Spurs take the title. A very, very close fixture though with FC Utrecht in the quarterfinals. Just a 1-0 win. And then a back and forth affair with Atalanta. Unfortunately, Atalanta knocking out Rangers. But Spurs 6, Atalanta 5. What a fixture. Well, what a 2 fixtures that was. And then Spurs had Borussia Mönchengladbach of Germany in the final. And they win that one 3-1. They actually went behind to a goal from Pablo Beltran of Gladbach. Pretty darn good player right there. But responses from Nelio, a Brazilian centre-back who's been here since 2029. Not someone I remember seeing before. Yeah, just a £10 million move. And has kind of been benching a few starts. But he got the equaliser. Puigmal got the goal to put Spurs in front, a player we are definitely familiar with. And then capping it off was Lukas Sucic, who has been a very, very good player for Spurs throughout his time here. He put the nice little cherry on top, a 3-1 win, and Tottenham will play Europa League football next season, whether they finished 6th or not. Shifting up to the Europa League, and once again it is Premier League success. This time it is Arsenal who win the Europa League. They already had Champions League football guaranteed anyway through their Premier League position, but why not add a piece of silverware to it as well? They actually did overcome RB Leipzig 4-3, a game that I really didn't see them getting through, but they did, so well done. A 3-0 win over Lille in the semi-finals, and then a 2-0 win over Athletic Club Bilbao in the final. That obviously meaning that Athletic Bilbao did knock Sheffield United out in the quarterfinals, unfortunately, 3-2. We'll take a look at who got the goals for Arsenal in that final. Is David Peña one of them? No. It was Martin Ødegaard and Yasser Asprilla. Asprilla's obviously been here for quite a while now. And Martin Ødegaard, mainstay. The man is still here. 34 years of age now. Not for sale, important player. Still looks ridiculously good, to be fair. And over 400 Premier League appearances. He opened the scoring. Asprilla with the second. Complete domination as well from Arsenal. And they get a piece of silverware as well. And then to the Champions League, and it was another all-English Champions League final. Manchester City toppling Liverpool. I say toppling. Man City defending their Champions League title with a 2-1 win over Liverpool. We'll look at their paths to the final as well. Man City 5-2 over Chelsea in the quarterfinals, and then 4-2 over Bayern Munich in the semis. Liverpool, same scoreline, 5-2 over Real Sociedad, and then 3-1 past AC Milan. We'll take a look at how the final actually panned out. This is Man City's 4th trophy on the season, though it is very unlikely that they won the Premier League. Jeremy Pino gave Manchester City the lead. It was an equaliser from David Webber, another player that I think we're going to have to get familiar with here, because that's at least 2 finals he's scored in this season for Liverpool, but it was Erling Haaland who scores the winning goal in the Champions League final. He just literally gets better with age. He's going to turn 33 this summer, and he's still absolutely insane. But Man City with a 4th trophy on the season. We've also got another trophy to look at, which is the FA Cup, and Manchester City were here as well, but they got absolutely dominated by Chelsea. I believe this is Chelsea's only silverware of the season. They do get one though, which is important. Ian Dino gave them the lead in the 12th minute. It was then backed up by 2 Vinicius goals in the first half as well. 3-0 up at half-time. A Kylian Mbappe penalty early in the second half completely killed the game off at 4-0. There was a late consolation goal from Ben Bamba, but Chelsea get a little bit of revenge over Manchester City and do win the FA Cup. And all of that leads us back to the Premier League, and Liverpool win their first title in 13 years. It was a bit nervy though. A 1-1 draw at Brentford. My team gave them the lead. Marcel Madavadua then got an equaliser for Brentford, and that must have been a very, very nervy ending for Liverpool, especially when Prettel was sent off with just 13 minutes to go in the game. Wow, Liverpool made that stressful. But they have done it. They win a Premier League title, only their second one since the Premier League's inception. And it's a good job they got that point, because Manchester City did indeed beat Wolves 2-1. We see Chelsea and Arsenal taking Champions League football, and Manchester United and Sheffield United finishing as the top 6. Spurs and Sheffield United, same points, same goal difference. That's the first time we've seen that in this save. That is wild. Sheffield United with a massive 2-1 win over Newcastle. Manchester United got a win as well. They smashed Leicester 4-1. Awful season for Leicester. Only just hitting that 40-point mark. A lot of change needed there. But then Spurs also did win as well. They won 1-0 at Brighton. But it was not quite enough. However, they won the Conference League, so it didn't matter in the end. They make Europa League, which means, again, we're going to have another season where there's no Premier League representation in the Conference League, which is probably a good thing because they keep winning the thing. So at least another side gets a chance. I'll have to remember to see who actually does win that eventually. But going down to the bottom half, and I said this was a possibility, Burnley are relegated for the first time in 18 years, or 18 seasons, I think it was. They go down to a 3-1 loss away at Chelsea, and Fulham get a 2-1 win at Reading. A draw was enough. They actually did fall behind to an Evan Ferguson goal. But the man of the moment is Samuel Cassano. 2 goals for him. Get Fulham the win. As mentioned, a point would have been enough, so technically his first goal was the one that actually kept them up. But Fulham remain a Premier League club, and Burnley are relegated for the first time in this save. So in the last 2 seasons, we've seen 3 permanent Premier League sides in the save go down for the first time. So it is good to see so many different sides shifting about. And we're not getting that many different clubs coming up, which I would love to see. I mean, we saw Sunderland in a playoff final. I'd like to see them have a go. There's a lot of teams that are championship level that I would love to see at least get one go in the Premier League, but the game seems to be stuck on alternating through the same kind of 5 or 6. But Burnley going down is at least different. Leicester do stay up as mentioned. Aston Villa end up grabbing 10th place, so a good season from them. But then you think Norwich, 14th. Oh, wow, they really dropped off towards the end of the season. And then you realise they were only 5 points behind Villa and 2 behind West Ham in 11th. So actually still a pretty darn good season on that front. But to finish off, we're going to take a look at the team and player stats. Obviously, they won't have changed too much from our last check at the beginning of April. But most goals goes to Chelsea with 88, Man City 86, Liverpool only third in that category with 78. But it's still enough to bring the Premier League back to Anfield. If we look at least goals scored, Brentford were always down there, just the 26th for them. Derby 34 and Southampton 39, despite finishing 13th. So actually not all that bad. And we see Arsenal and Liverpool conceding just 35 times in the 38 games, Man City 39, and then Manchester United and Newcastle at 40. Again, you can see where Chelsea's issues came. 48 goals conceded on the season. It's only 7th best. That's definitely where the drop-off has occurred on that part. We take a look at the player stats. Benjamin Sesko establishes himself as the Golden Boot winner once again. He gets 28. David Pena there on 25, and Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland with 24. The only other man to crack 20 goals is Martin Satriano of Sheffield United. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep their Champions League charge going. But another season of Europa League football, just as important. So, very well done to them. We look at assists, and that is topped by Shola Shortire with 13. 1 ahead of Massimo Fortunato. There was also 1 ahead of Yeremy Pino. With very good seasons from Alex Scott and Indino as well in there. Key passes, it was Fran Puigmal leading the way by a long way with 82. Also racking up 9 assists on the season. Elias Solberg still proving to be a very talented player for Southampton. He was second alongside Gasimzadeh of Aston Villa. And then, where has chances created gone? There it is. It was Kvaratskhelia for Aston Villa, who finished top of that with 20. And then a few names behind on 17, likes of Tommy Doyle, Harvey Elliott, Shola Shortire. And actually, Fran Puigmal is just 4. 8 assists on the season for Tommy Doyle, which is a pretty darn good return there. And Harvey Elliott with 8 as well. We look to... Where's dribbles completed? Where's that gone? Dribbles made was led by Zidakiga Lane of Reading, actually. Yeremy Pino and Tariq Lamptey and Pedro Brazao. Quite a long way behind him. He is very good at dribbling, isn't he? He is also very wanted by AC Milan and Real Madrid. So maybe some big money coming the way of Reading here. Zidakiga Lane was a superb signing for just 8.5 million. What a deal that was for Reading. Brilliantly done on their part. If we head down to the defensive statistics, we start with tackles 1. We've got 2 names in Guillaume Barreau for Brentford. Obviously, they were relegated a very long time ago. And then Gasimzadeh's here again. He's up there in a couple of statistics. Has had a pretty good season for Villa. He is now wanted, and it's AC Milan and Real Sociedad. So again, Another team that could get a high amount of money coming their way, that would be good to see. A Chinese player in the Premier League as well. It's been good to see some different nationalities appearing. Likes of Luke Hai as well for Fulham. So they've got a Chinese and a Vietnamese defender that are regular players. That is very interesting. We move down to key tackles. We find Ali Rayner, Syrian player. So again, a nice mix of nationalities throughout the Premier League. Mark Alvarez there in second on that one, with Pershers and Noah Katterback also up there on key tackles. Look to interceptions made. We find Vitaly Mikalenko still going, age 34. He tops that one ahead of Strahinja Bjekovic, and teammate Sergio Carrera also in there for West Ham. We see Ryan Brown leading shots blocked. Rob Cooper tops fouls for Brentford. Not really a stat you want to be topping. But if we look to goals conceded, Pascal Traore just 28 in 33 and a bit appearances. Aaron Ramsdale 35 in his 37 games, with Osvaldo Fernando 37 in his 35. Clean sheets. It is a golden glove to one season wonder Justin Bijlow. He has spent a whole one season in the Premier League with Sheffield United at the age of 35 and won a golden glove. If you'd have said that at the beginning of the save, you'd have sounded insane. Well, Osvaldo Fernando just one behind, and Pascal Traore one behind that. So definitely two goalkeepers to keep an eye on. Now that Fernando's been here for 2 seasons, and I think Traore has done 3. Yes. They are certainly the 2 best up-and-coming goalkeepers. Well, not even up-and-coming. They are here. They are very much here at this point. If we look to the XG prevented to finish us off, Aaron Ramsdale tops that chart with Pascal Traore on 8.5 to 9 region. Etienne Green and Alexander Popovic, actually just in Bijlow as well, just under the 5 mark, which is Sakir and Valtar, who played 5 times this season for Fulham. He is wanted by Everton. I would imagine Everton and Leeds are probably straight back. I would be surprised if they weren't 1-2 in the Premier League, but we'll find out at the beginning of the next video. So go down a little bit further. Again, apologies to Carl Jakob Hein for me slagging him off and then him getting 9th with Reading. Hell of a season from them. We see lower down Juan Musso, now 39 years of age, not having a good season, and Burnley relegated. Matvei Safonov fell off a cliff, didn't he? Still got a pretty good average rating and still 12 clean sheets. But wasn't exactly helping Man City. Maybe that cost them, you know. If you have Ederson in goal this season, Man City may well take the title back. But it is nice to see at least a different team win the league. I mean, I say different. Liverpool's not all that different. They've been up near the top for a very long time. But that is where we are going to bring the 2032-33 season to a close. And it is, as we said, new champions in this save. Liverpool win their first Premier League title of the simulation. We say goodbye to Burnley, Derby and Brentford for next season. We also say bye to the Europa Conference League because Spurs won that and will play Europa League football next season. But I feel like we're getting to a point in this save where an awful lot is going to change in a very short period of time. But if you have enjoyed the video, please do like, comment, anything that can help with getting these videos out there. I certainly enjoy doing them, so they are going to keep coming over the next few weeks, months, however long we end up going, because I'm really intrigued in this save to see how far the likes of Sheffield United can go, whether Reading can become that next club, Leeds' tycoon takeover, if they come back to the Premier League, is going to be a very intriguing topic through the next few years. But we're going to pick it up next season, and Liverpool will have a crown to defend.